This is the cheapest RTX 5070 Ti gaming laptop right now, but there's a big problem that could make all that GPU power pointless. This is MSI's Vector 16, and while there's a lot to like, there's also a lot that you need to know before you buy. The Vector's overall design hasn't really changed. It's still got a grey finish with metal lid, but plastic interior and bottom panel. It's by no means a premium laptop, but build quality is a solid average with only minor flex. These extra bottom feet underneath help the keyboard deck feel sturdier, but they also make the laptop a bit less grippy on the desk as they're just smooth plastic. Even the front rubber feet don't feel as grippy as the back, which makes it easier to slide towards the front. The lid hinges feel nice and smooth. No problems if I try pushing back too far or if I rip the lid open way too fast. And the screen doesn't wobble when typing. It's easy to open, but the screen doesn't quite go back as far as most other laptops. Still plenty for regular viewing though. It's thicker towards the back, but overall still fairly portable for a 16-inch gaming laptop. The laptop alone weighs in at almost 5.8 pounds or 2.6 kilos, increasing to 8 pounds or 3.6 kilos with a fairly large 330 watt charger. It's only slightly lighter compared to the previous Vector we tested with RTX 4080, but it's not that much different compared to some of the heaviest 16-inch models. That's the case with the charger included too. There are plenty of 16-inch models that are lighter. It's just that in most cases, they're going to cost more if you get similar specs inside. And speaking of specs, my configuration has Nvidia's RTX 5070 Ti graphics, Intel's Core Ultra 9 275HX processor, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 16-inch 2560 by 1600 240Hz screen. But you can get it with higher or lower specs with the link below. And if it has a good sale, we'll list it on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can save money. The keyboard has 24 zones of RGB backlighting, which offers a lot of effects, but not as many options as per key customization. All keys and secondary functions get lit up, and you can swap between 4 brightness levels with the function and F8 shortcut. MSI's built-in Mystic Light software lets you choose between different effects and customize colors, speed, and direction. The keyboard has 1.7mm of key travel and a clicky feel that I like to type with. But the touchpad, on the other hand, was annoying to use. I'm not sure if it's just mine, but it feels loose, like there are 2 levels of click. So this is a normal click, and then this is the weird half click that it does. Full click when you push down, half click. I don't know, it's just like there's 2 levels and it's a bit annoying. Port selection is decent overall. I like that bulkier cables like HDMI, Ethernet, and power run out the back and stay out of the way, but it would have been nice to have a Type A and Type C on either side. I was surprised to see Thunderbolt 5 here, considering the more expensive Legion Pro 7i we reviewed last week didn't have that. The ports on the back were annoying to use, because this bit of plastic above them sticks out, meaning you either have to bend really far over to see where the ports are, or just turn the laptop around. The display outputs are great for getting best performance in games with a monitor or running VR, but with no ports connecting to the integrated graphics, it means warmer temps and louder fans if you're doing light work on an external monitor. Getting inside requires removing 13 Phillips head screws, all the same length. It was extremely difficult to open. You'll absolutely need pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. If you ever make it inside, the battery is down the front, 2 memory slots are just above near the middle, 2 M.2 storage slots are found to the left of that, and the Wi-Fi 7 card is to the left of those. Wi-Fi performance was great and in line to other laptops with Wi-Fi 7 cards. The speeds from the installed PCIe Gen 4 drive were great, but my SD card is capable of speeds 2 to 3 times faster than this in other laptops. The card doesn't click in, but it sits most of the way into the laptop, so less risk of bumping it. Both M.2 slots can easily fit drives with chips on both sides, and one of them supports faster PCIe Gen 5. But they haven't labeled which is which like they did with their Titan. The upgrade score would have been about as good as most other 16-inch laptops at 6 points, but I took off half a point for how hard it was to actually open and upgrade. But if you can open it, there are decent options available. The speakers are found towards the front on the left and right sides, and they sounded much better than I was expecting. They're actually pretty pretty decent with some bass and still clear at higher volume, but there was some wrist-rest vibration. Unfortunately, the Latencymon results weren't great in our 5-minute idle test. The Vector is powered by a 4-cell 90Wh battery. The MSI Center software has display power saver enabled by default, which automatically lowers the screen's refresh rate to 60Hz when you unplug the charger to save power, and it goes back up when you plug back in. Battery life was pretty good for a laptop with an Intel HX processor inside, lasting for 6.5 hours in our YouTube video playback test, or more than 20% better compared to the last Vector we tested, which had the same sized battery. It lost 17% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours. But this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Here's how much power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison. And again, it's one of the better results compared to others tested so far. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a standard cooler with 3 heat pipes shared between the CPU and GPU. Air comes in through the holes on the bottom panel and gets exhausted out of both sides towards the back, and out of the back towards the left and right corners. The MSI Center software lets us change between these different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are Eco Silent, Balanced, and Extreme Performance. There's also the AI Engine mode, but we found that pretty useless, as power limits just adjust based on the window you've got in focus, regardless of what background tasks are running. Extreme mode lets you overclock the GPU, but by default there's no overclock, so that's how we tested it. You can also enable Cooler Boost, which maxes out the fans, or use advanced mode to customize the fans a bit. There's also the function plus up arrow key shortcut, which can be used to turn on max fans at any time in any performance mode. The internal temperatures are cold at idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst case full load scenario. If we use the best extreme mode, setting the fans to max speed didn't actually help much. And that's because they're already quite loud, which you'll hear soon. Closing the lid to dock the laptop was fine, and strangely, using a metal stand to raise the back up was slightly warmer, which is something I've seen from a few laptops this year. Even the cooling pad I tested with, linked below, was warmer with its fan at 800 RPM, while 1400 RPM was needed just to get it in line with not using a pad at all. It was possible to lower temps quite a bit by maxing out the cooling pad, but it's ridiculously loud. Thermal throttling wasn't happening in this test, so CPU and GPU clock speeds aren't really that different in extreme mode no matter what we do. GPU clock speeds tend to increase slightly with better cooling though. The RTX 5070 Ti in the Vector can run up to 140 watts with Nvidia's dynamic boost, so it's a full powered pod. However, we found it to run around 110 watts with the CPU loaded up at the same time in extreme mode. Well, it's kind of weird, because extreme mode with the fans on auto initially ran closer to 120 watts. But then anytime we played around with the cooling, the laptop instead shifted power away from the GPU towards the CPU. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. The native results at ultra settings without any upscaling are in purple, while red shows DLSS set to balanced. The AI engine was basically the same as balanced mode, while extreme mode doesn't really offer that much better FPS. Gaming on 140 watts of Type-C power was actually usable. That's not the case on others we've tested. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle, and this time the AI mode basically replicated extreme performance, while Eco Silent mode felt super sluggish and might not work well for getting work done. Performance on Type-C charge was decent here too, so that could be used on the go if you don't want to carry around MSI's chunky brick. CPU performance is on the lower side when compared to other laptops we've tested with the same processor, but it's also not really that different. Most of them are in the same ballpark, and 56% higher compared to the last Vector we tested 2 years ago isn't bad at all. Unfortunately, performance drops like a brick when we unplug the charger and run the test on battery power, where that older Vector is now basically matching crushing it. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range on the keyboard at idle, and the Vector was below this as its fans are always active. It's warmer with the stress test running, but it's nowhere near hot as silent mode limits the GPU to about 50 watts and the CPU to just 15 watts. It's a fair bit warmer in balanced mode, but the rest is still cold and WASD isn't hot. Only the back is hot, but you don't need to touch there. It's cooler in extreme mode, but as you'll hear shortly, it's much louder too, even without manually setting the fans to max speed. So that's the trade-off. The hottest point of the keyboard near the backspace key wasn't too bad when compared to most other laptops tested, but that's because the fans run much louder than most others. Let's have a listen. The fans were always audible when doing nothing at idle, which is why it was so cool at idle. The fans get louder in the higher modes, as expected, but extreme mode with the fans on auto was very loud, so much so that setting them to maximum with cooler boost barely made a difference. It's actually the loudest laptop we've tested in the last couple of years, when not including manually setting fans to full speed, so yeah, not amazing. But don't forget that balanced mode just below it runs significantly quieter, and that gaming in balanced mode doesn't really lose that much performance compared to extreme mode, so you can absolutely still get good gaming performance without getting blasted by a jet engine. Alright, we need to talk about the screen, as it was one of the worst parts of the Vector last gen. I've got the 2560 by 1600 240Hz panel option, and it looks decent for something that's neither OLED or mini LED. But the problem is MSI is still offering this thing with a low quality 1080p panel option with just 45% NTSC coverage, which is technical speak for shit colors no one should be dealing with in 2025. And assuming it's the same budget panel in the Vector I tested a couple of years ago, it's not as bright and has a very slow response time. The better 240Hz panel I've got, on the other hand, goes up to 500 nits at full brightness, and is a fair bit brighter compared to the lower quality option. In fact, there aren't really that many other laptops brighter than it, unless you step up to mini LED. The MSI Center software has display overdrive enabled by default, which makes the screen faster. With overdrive enabled, we're looking at a 3.8 millisecond average gray-to-gray response time, but if you turn it off, things are a bit slower. Doing this does remove the small amount of overshoot and undershoot, but for most people, just leave overdrive on. It's a great result when compared against other laptops, only significantly beaten by faster OLED panels. And just look how it compares to that lower quality 1080p version in the last gen Vector. If you've got the option of both, get the better screen. You won't regret it. It's quite fast in the total system latency test, which is how long it takes between clicking a mouse and when a gunshot fire shows on the screen in Counter-Strike 2. It's only beaten by laptops with higher tier GPUs, and it's more than twice as fast compared to that last gen Vector with the slower screen. The Vector has a MOC switch, so you can disable Optimus to get better FPS in games, but it needs a reboot to apply, because MSI is still the only company who haven't embraced the future of advanced Optimus. Adaptive Sync is available with Optimus on, but there's no G-Sync with Optimus off, which means you may experience screen tearing with Optimus off. Not ideal. There's a 1080p camera above the screen in the middle, and it has IR for Windows Hello Face unlock, but the quality isn't anything special, and here's how it sounds while typing on the keyboard. And it also has a privacy shutter. Alright, let's see how well MSI's Vector 16 performs in games. We've tested it with these settings for best results. Cyberpunk 2077 was a little behind the other 5070 Ti laptop we've tested at 1080p, but hey, it's ahead of Razer's far more expensive Blade 16 with 5090. At 1440p, it's close to the RTX 4080, so similar performance is possible from the 5070 Ti. Alan Wake 2 was close to the other 5070 Ti laptop at 1080p, and not far behind the last gen 4080, and then similar deal at 1440p, where we're still able to surpass 60 FPS at max settings without even using any upscaling. Black Myth Wukong was a few frames ahead of the other 5070 Ti laptop, and again, slightly behind the 4080, and then same deal at 1440p. But again, the Vector still managed above 60 FPS at high settings, so the 5070 Ti is definitely quite capable. We'll just quickly skip through the results with ray tracing and DLSS upscaling enabled. In most cases, frame rates actually ended up better with DLSS on, despite the extra resources required to trace those sweet rays. But at the end of the day, the 5070 Ti is generally a little behind the 4080. I'm working on a 25 game comparison between the 5070 Ti and 4080, so make sure that you're subscribed for that. Here are the 3D Mark results. Content creator results are decent. This is the first 5070 Ti laptop we've ever done, so it's expected to see most 5080 and 5090 results ahead. But that's not always the case. Oh, and forget about content creation if you get it with that low quality 1080p screen. MSI's advanced BIOS can be accessed by entering the usual cheat code, and it gives you an insane amount of customization that no other laptop brand offers. If you're a tuner or a tweaker, pretty much any option you can imagine can be found here. Linux support was flawless with the latest version of Ubuntu. Everything I tried worked fine. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the links below the videos for updates and to see if there are current sales. And if the Vector does have a good sale, we'll add it to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the best sales, so make sure that you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in mid-July, we're looking at $1,625 for the RTX 5070 Ti version with the best sale we've seen so far. Unfortunately, this one has the lower quality 1080p screen, so watch out for that. The higher tier RTX 5080 version goes for $2,250, which is one of the cheaper 5080 laptops we've seen so far. But what sucks is you're forced into spending more for the 5080 if you want the higher quality QHD Plus screen. That might not be the case in other regions. I think here in Australia, for instance, you can only get the QHD Plus 240Hz panel. But right now in the US, at least at Best Buy, if you want the 5070 Ti, they're forcing you to get that lower quality 1080p screen, which really sucks, especially as people are considering the 5070 Ti laptop GPU with 12 gigs of VRAM as it's a good sweet spot for 1440p gaming. But then it's kind of pointless if they're making you buy it with a 1080p screen. And then it's just salt in the wound that the 1080p screen they're selling it with kind of sucks. The only positive would be for people who just want to buy a cheap 5070 Ti and plan on docking the laptop and connecting it to a higher quality monitor. So it depends on your use case. I suspect a whole lot of people won't be doing that though. So then, is MSI's Vector 16 worth considering? Let's quickly summarize the good and the bad to help you decide. Starting with the good, build quality isn't terrible for a cheaper laptop. The keyboard feels nice to type on. Battery life is well above average for a laptop with an Intel HX processor. Linux support was excellent. The BIOS has plenty of customization. The lower price means good value for the performance on offer. And it's actually got Thunderbolt 5 despite being a cheaper laptop. Of course, as usual, nothing is perfect. I can't believe MSI still aren't using advanced Optimus. The weird double-click issue with the touchpad was annoying, but that might just be our laptop. I don't understand why they've got plastic extruding over the rear ports. It just makes them harder to use. It is towards the heavier side as far as 16-inch gaming laptops go, and the fans are much louder than others in extreme mode. Though, as mentioned, you can still find a good balance of performance and fan noise with the lower balanced mode. But the main problem for me is that lower quality 1080p screen option that Best Buy in the US seems to be forcing with the 5070 Ti. Seriously, if you've got the option between those two screens, I would be willing to spend $100+ more to get the better quality 1440p option. It's just going to be worth it for something that you literally look at every time you use the laptop. To be clear, I think this is a pretty decent gaming laptop overall considering the price point, and it is worth considering with the better screen. It really sucks that, at least through Best Buy, you're forced into spending more money to get the RTX 5080 if you do want the better screen. But if the 5080 is within budget and you want better gaming performance, then find out how much better it is compared to the 5070 Ti over here. I've compared both GPUs in 25 games at 3 different resolutions to find out if the 5080 is worth it.